Hello and welcome to the SME Focus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. On this week's show, as always, we aim to highlight aspects of UK manufacturing or topics of interest to SMEs. Therefore, my guest today is Steve Parker, who was also one of my first guests 18 months ago. Steve's business, ICD or International Company Development, helps businesses in the West Midlands sell their products overseas. In this special fireside episode in the run-up before Christmas, we're going to look at some of the businesses Steve works with and perhaps surprise people on where things that are manufactured in the heart of the West Midlands are sold to in the world. Hi, Steve. Welcome to SME Focus.
Hi, Mark. Good to be back with you.
Thanks for coming on. So 18 months ago, you were a guest and a few things have changed in the show. I haven't got any more professional, but I just try a little bit harder. And one of the things I've introduced is the habit of trying to put a musical reference point into each episode. Hopefully people go away and listen to the music and they forget how amateur the show is. But I like implanting annoying earwigs into people for their weekend. So I've tried to pick an important date in your history, and I looked at the founding of ICD back in January 2002. And I saw that Birmingham's special son, Ozzy Osbourne, and his daughter Kelly were in the charts at number 2. So I'm going to twist my rules a bit because their duet of Changes had been number 1 before Christmas. So my musical reference point for you, Steve, is Changes by Ozzy and Kelly Osbourne. So I hope that sits well with you.
That would be good. I suppose your other pick might have been the famous Slade tune that's being played there just down the road from Wolverhampton. And we've had some Beverly Knights stuff in the charts and things like that. But yeah, always glad to be even remotely associated with an area that includes Ozzy Osbourne, Lenny Henry, Beverly Knight and Slade. You know, I think that gives us some credibility between us, doesn't it? Some street cred.
I did read an email today about Slade's final tour, and I did consider it. And then I noticed the advert they sent me was to go and see them in Bournemouth, which seemed a little bit too much like effort for me. But hey, I'm sure they'll be back to the Midlands.
They'll have to be back in the Midlands, won't they? Yeah, I know what you mean. These final tours. I think I've seen the final tour of the Eagles about 3 times as well. So yeah.
God bless them. At least they're still going. They must have lived a better life than they claimed at the time.
Well, they did. And Joe Walsh comes up with a great line with one of his tunes that if he'd known 19 years later he'd still be singing it. He would have written it in a lower key. And I think that was an expectation as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Looking back on lives, not that of pop stars, but just of yourself, dare I say such a thing. Can I kick off by asking you to tell us a little bit about your background, Steve, and your love of manufacturing?
Yeah, sure. I got into export and international trade by accident. Like most people, I wanted to do something else originally. But when I didn't get the job I was after, I got a job in the shipping department of Helix, and everybody would have had an Oxford maths set with a protractor and a ruler in. And we started exporting to 60 consignments a week for about 9 months of the year. So that got me into export shipping and finance and logistics and stuff. And then I got approached by a company who made architectural ironmongery, and I became the man who did the shipping, finance, internal sales, bit of export sales and marketing, none of which I'd ever planned to do. And then worked for a number of manufacturers over my career, making products in the Black Country, and because of my efforts and a whole load of others, selling them around the world. So I always had a manufacturing factory next to my office or downstairs or whatever. And even before that, my only link was I used to earn my pocket money working in a precision engineering company for my brother's then girlfriend's father. And impregnated in the right way in my bloodstream, and everything else was the smell of slurry and gunk, and other names are available, Swarfiga, and I just love the manufacturing side of it, and that's why it's always been something I've really enjoyed, and fundamentally survive and thrive now by wanting to see more UK products sold overseas, and seeing people have the thrill of saying, I made that in Wolverhampton, or I made that in Quarry Bank or somewhere. And that's my biggest thrill, apart from the money I make.
I thought you were going to say football, but we'll come on to that later. So talking business,
we'll bring that somewhere into the country.
Can you tell us what ICD does, and also maybe a little bit about the Exporting Starts Here program that you're involved with?
Yeah, thanks. I've been working for a number of manufacturers for about 30 years, spent 25 weeks a year overseas for 10 or 15 years developing sales and great relationships. And hadn't really at the time thought about starting my own company, but I took time out respectfully working for the government's export services organisation for a few years. And when they did their surveys, nobody thought they used them. They just knew. Their standard answer was, oh, it's Steve Parker. Oh, he just helps us with all our exports. And I discovered 40 or 50 companies there that either didn't export, and I helped them get their first export sales, or I helped them export more. When I then moved on to an American-owned manufacturer in Kings Winford, when we were at a board meeting one day and they decided to propose that they were going to not make in Kings Winford anymore, but have it all made in Crystal Lake, north of Chicago, and would I like to run a European and Middle East and UK sales and marketing operation, I decided I was a big manufacturing UK fan, and thought that, well, if I could have done all this stuff overseas and got all those contacts and learned all that stuff, despite fundamentally being a shy bloke from Stourbridge, then anybody could. So why didn't I start my own company? So I whisper it, spent 2 months while working for them to set up Steve Parker ICD. It was just going to be called International Company Development. And then when I passed it around a few people I know, they said, don't forget, people just know you as Steve, who helps us with our exports. So hence I had to put my name on it, rather embarrassingly. And I started that and left the previous one. And I've been working with, I've been helping people export either by advising them how to do it, showing them how to do it, or doing the work for them for all of those years now. And here we are in 2025, 2026. And most of my hair is still in place. And I'm still enjoying stuff going overseas. Okay. Oh, yes, you asked me about the export thing.
Please.
Sorry, yeah, the Export Starts Here program is one that I helped the chambers write. There was some funding to help companies export in a way that nobody else had done really before, and I helped the chambers get the funding, and then they said, you are going to deliver it, aren't you? And so I'm delivering that, and it gives people who either want to export or are already exporting and they've got some issues which they need help with, it gives them several hours of my expertise for free, but I get paid handsomely for it and get the thrill out of seeing them succeed.
And can we give a shout out to which chambers these are?
Yeah, I'm delivering the program for Black Country Chamber at the moment, but the program is also available for Greater Birmingham Chamber and Coventry and Warwickshire Chamber as well.
Okay.
So if you go through the Black Country one, you get me. Yeah. I've been delivering delivering things on a one-to-one basis with people in the Black Country.
Okay. Before we get on to the main topic of just chatting about where West Midland manufactured product ends up being sold to, can I ask you to tell us a little bit about a side hobby, side passion, which is your business show on Fridays around lunchtime on Black Country Radio?
Yeah, another thing that happened by accident. Never thought I'd be confident enough to do any of that. But I was chair of a business support organisation that had 3 letters, which might have been the FSB. A number of years ago, started to get called in to do media, which was horrendously scary. But I wanted to show the world of micro, small and medium businesses, particularly in that order, because they didn't get any publicity. And a couple of years later, I ended up presenting and have been since things. So it's every Friday, 1 till 4. I have guests in the first 2 hours and manufacturing news with music in between in the 3rd hour. And find out what it's really like in our micro, small, medium and large business world, locally, nationally and internationally in that order. And people then get access to people like yourself, Mark, and the people in my business world to help them grow better and to make them succeed more. So it's quite scary and fun to do. And I know a number of businesses listen, and because my favourite ones is when I get an email or a call saying along the lines of, Steve, I've got this problem, and you had somebody on your show and it was, I can't remember their name, but they talked about so-and-so, and I said, oh yeah, that'd be Mark Weymouth or one of the others. And do you want me to give you their details? Do you want me to introduce you? How do you want to do it? And then they get back in touch with people, and hopefully it inspires them that they're not alone and that they can succeed. And there's a whole load of support with ordinary people who have taken the plunge to run their own businesses.
And how many years have you been presenting the show?
Well, just like you said, I'd been on here 18 months ago. It's been several years now, much to my surprise. Still trying to get it right. Still enjoying the times when the mind goes blank halfway in the middle of something. But I get my thrill out of showing what our business world is like, not what you hear on the mainstream media, even if they cover some of the people in the first place, which most of them don't. So yeah, ready-made supply chain of people who come on and put themselves through the fear of doing radio, and people get to know about them and what they're going through and some of the great stuff they do.
Okay, so on to the main topic of this episode. Instead of going to see Santa and getting a present, as older manufacturing people, we get to sit by the fire, so to speak, or the TV, and listen to you telling us some interesting anecdotes about some of the businesses you work with in terms of what they make in the West Midlands and where does it go to. So a lot of people don't really, I think, appreciate, for a start, what's manufactured, but hopefully you're going to surprise them on what is sold across the world but made in the West Midlands. So over to you, beside the fireside. Tell us some interesting tales, please.
Yeah, the fire's crackling in the background, isn't it? Yeah, my thrill is, I could give you loads of technical reasons about exporting and international trade, but my thrill is when I see people's stuff overseas that's been made. And if I watch the mainstream media, nothing's made around here. You and I are advocates and supporters of manufacturing around the UK anyway. But people think, oh, if you and I had £1 for every time anybody said, nothing's made here anymore, nothing's made in the Black Country anymore. And I get a thrill out of going to these companies and thinking, blimey, I'm kind of surprised you could sell some of that. And I'm surprised at the places we go to. So I thought I'd whiz through a few supply runs. First of all, it's not an advert, but I still technically own another company where glass designers and artists from Stourbridge sell design glassware to top interiors around the world. And I've got products in hotels in the Middle East and the Far East and around that. And everybody thought the glass industry in Stourbridge was dead. So I've come up with some more that you might be a bit more surprised in. I don't think it's an exaggeration, but I helped to slightly rescue a company that makes shelving in Cradley, who had come across difficult times because somebody had sold their designs over to China, and the market was flooded with Chinese shelving. But the original brand and everything is now back out there. So shelving that's made in Cradley is being sold into parts of the Middle East and South Africa and Canada, because people are tired of the Chinese quality levels, and they think, well, I want to buy the original brand from the original designer and maker in the first place. We've got some traditional paint colours that are used on classic cars and things like that, being reimagined by a company called Bygone Colours in Willenhall. There's a metal fabricator in Walsall, and amongst others, who not only sell to tier 1 suppliers in automotive and aerospace in the UK, but is going to companies overseas. They also make car racks for classic cars, which are being used by classic car collectors in another one. We tend to forget that I think there's an image that anybody can make nuts and bolts. And yeah, there are lots of nuts and bolts made in overseas where the UK can't compete. But there are a few companies in Willenhall who make specialist fasteners that go into petrochem and oil and gas, because they can't afford for them to explode or break down or not work. I had a surprising one with boiler and central heating parts, which surely all the manufacturers would be able to supply that worldwide. But I've got a client who can supply those faster and more economically and better than, and with better customer service. And their biggest market's Canada, likewise with somebody who does flue systems made in the Black Country. I've got some machine parts again. Surely some local Chinese or Indonesian or Indian manufacturers could make that cheaper than someone in the Black Country, or better. Well, they probably can, but I've got some clients whose turnover is more than 50% export, who supply those, make and supply those parts into Australia and Canada and parts of that. There's some work going on also. I've also got a textile designer who makes cushion covers and throws. Those are made in Derbyshire. They're designed in Derbyshire, and those are in some really good hotels. And then, because you don't want an hour of all these topics, other things they've got, lift systems that are used in repair shops for coaches and trucks, designed and made and shipped from Kings Winford. Some tooling products in Lye, just down the road from me. Somebody who designs and makes and ships fast food catering vans. Those are going out of Cradley to parts of the Middle East. There's a lot of refractory products for furnaces where they're still being made in Netherton and shipped around the world. What else have we got? Oh, we've got, people probably won't realise it, but I now look at them because I'm sad. Some of the coaches and minibuses and public transport used in places like Hong Kong and China and Australia and the Middle East are made in Sandwell, in Smethwick, and go around the world. And and all sorts of ones like that. So that's the thrill when you hide under the surface. Some of these people haven't got time to tell people how brilliant they are, but on specification and because of trust levels and because of quality levels, then there are some great examples. And I'm sad enough that when I travel, I go around pointing at things and saying, my stuff's in there. And that guy from Kings Winford, his stuff's in there. I do work with services as well. I've got someone currently in Kuwait who does training on all of the kind of IT stuff that respectfully you and I, Mark, struggle with. But they're going out and doing IT training. I've got management training, which I've done in the Middle East and Thailand, and business growth training, which I've done in various parts of it. So, yeah, I spend a lot of time working with people in the Middle East, the Far East, Australasia, the USA currently. USA, if you follow the mainstream news, tariffs and nobody's going to sell there. Well, there are big opportunities in the USA because using the T word, Donald Trump is trying to develop and grow the USA manufacturing. So he's putting high import duties on Chinese and Indian stuff. Well, if your competitors are Indian and Chinese, you get a product advantage due to the import duties. So there are people getting back into America that weren't in before. And then on the other politically side of it, his political thing with Canada, there are some companies in Canada now who say, well, I used to buy from America, but I don't like that man with the letter T. So I'm looking for alternative suppliers, and I don't like the Chinese. I don't want to risk Chinese quality, and if I do, the import duties are high anyway. So there are opportunities for UK companies in USA, in Canada, in the Middle East and the Far East, where they're developing a high quality manufacturing. And so fairly busy on opportunities like that, as well as general stuff with people having problems getting into Ireland because of the European issues. And there's something I was talking about with somebody this morning, with some issues coming up with getting things into France due to a change in French legislation. If you're having problems in Europe, think of the rest of the world. It can be as easy to get it into there as it can into Europe. So loads of stuff which I'm hoping you and the listeners and watchers are thinking, blimey, I didn't know all that amount of stuff was being made just down the road.
Quite a bit of the stuff you talk about, you've given a wider selection on this chat because I've specifically asked you for one, but quite often when we've talked in the past, seems quite a lot of the stuff goes out to the Middle East and some off across to Asia. Do you think there's a particular reason why the Middle East is such an attractive market? I'm assuming they value UK quality.
They do. It's a hugely competitive market, but it's always changing. The landscape is always changing. They're always growing. Some of the Middle East markets, GDP is 75% tourism, but they realized during the COVID days and the other days that the more they could start making, the more people they could employ, they could employ less people in the civil service. I don't want to upset anybody, but they want to move more people out of their ministries where they're not generating income and it is costing them money. But the Middle East is an exciting one. One of the attractions is that they don't keep things as long. So I could point out places in the Middle East where there have been 5 buildings in my lifetime. They've created a shiny new sparkly building and with my stuff in it. And then after about 5 years, they've knocked it down and they built another one with my stuff in it. and so it goes on. And they're always, if they have a problem, they sort it out really quickly. They built a railway in 4 years. And with the right advice and putting the effort into the people relationships, it's a really great place. There's tons of stuff happening in Saudi Arabia, still things happening in the UAE and Qatar and Oman and Bahrain and Kuwait and some of the other ones. To put it in proportion, you'll only need a tiny market share to really dramatically affect your business. It's easy to get to, and as long as you think about the people relationships first, then you'll do really well.
Sounds like quite a good learning point for people to take forward into Christmas, to be honest, but okay. One of the other questions I normally ask in the shows, and it gives you the perfect opportunity to tell us about football, but I normally ask guests, what do they talk about over the weekend? Because this show will tend to go out at the weekend. So can I ask you what topic you enjoy talking about to somebody in the kitchen, at a party, or at the pub as we were earlier this week? What do you talk to people about when you're not on a Teams call or you're not training somebody about the joys of customs and growth overseas?
Yeah, apart from exporting, football, sport and football, the business show on radio drifted into being a reporter on the Black Country radio sports shows, which turned into being a summariser for the commentator, which turned into being the main commentator for Black Country radio. So I cover non-league football and other sports every Saturday. So that's always fun. As sport generally, music as well, big live music fan as well. But yeah, sport and non-league, particularly non-league football, I'm involved in that. When I'm not doing radio, then I'm watching it. I follow the Premier League and the other stuff as well, but go and watch a non-league football. Go and watch Kidderminster, Harriers, Starbridge, Halzowen, any of those teams below them, and see proper football. And you can take the kids if you've got any, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. You'll get well looked after. You'll be close to the action. You won't see people falling on the floor for no reason, because they get too much stick from the crowd when they do it, and you'll be home in time for tea. So yeah, a lot of that is another great way of doing it, and you'll meet some good people at the same time. But dogs is the first one, because the dog's part of our company and part of our family, and when it's not dogs, it's sport.
Okay, so you need to find a way somehow to combine those into a future business.
I think I should really, along with the travelling and showing people around some of the places you'll know, and I don't mind sharing that. I'm now going back to the places I used to spend all that time, but without a briefcase and without a rucksack full of things, and having I used to explore them at the time, but my brain was always full of the previous meeting or the next meeting, or I was always with a distributor or a partner overseas. Now I'm taking the head of the Ministry of the Interior back, who's the wife, and examining it and immerse yourself in the culture of it and find out these places, and it puts the UK's issues in proportion, really. You know, there actually is a better way of doing things.
Okay. It's traditional as well in the programme to ask, what do you have planned, or what do you hope to achieve in the next 12 months? So we're at the end of a year, so I guess everybody's asking themselves that anyway, but can I ask you, what are your hopes for the 2026?
Yeah, I want to actually do less work, because I was supposed to have semi-retired a while ago, and I'm failing miserably because I'm still helping so many people. I've helped and am helping about 30 companies under the program we mentioned before. I want to see them get into more markets. I want to help more people share the same thrill that I have over the years. There will still always be opportunities, despite what the government's doing rather than because of them. And I want to get the thrill out of getting those phone calls that I do occasionally, as a matter of course, where somebody sends me an email saying, we've just got this new order from, or I've just got this big inquiry and they sound genuine, can you help me convert it? That'll be a big thrill. And outside of that, I want to see my team, Haleslow in town, get promoted. And I think they probably have a really good chance. And more places to explore with the head of the Ministry of the Interior and the dog. And I'm thrilled that I said that in the right order, because I normally get them the wrong way around.
Okay. So how do people contact you? How do they find out more about your business? And how do they ask you for advice on local football?
Yeah, the last one's easier. But yeah, I've got two company websites, steveparkerizcd.com. So you don't have to put the international company development, but steveparkerizcd.com. My main email is steve@steveparkerizcd.com. You can also look at another company I own, and that's enterpriselabglobal.com. And yeah, drop me an email, give me a call, and we'll meet and have a cup of tea, and I'll be glad to help you. If you don't want to hear me talk about radio on Black Country Radio and Black Country Extra on a Friday, then if you listen to the Black Country Radio sports show and the sports news, then I tend to pop up on that most Saturdays and sometimes in the week. So yeah, the old bit, you only need a small percentage of export to have a dramatic effect on your business.
Okay, I think that sentence might have been the perfect answer to the question I'd like to ask you, which is, before I sign off and say thanks, do you have a final sentence, question, observation, or thought that you'd like to sign off the episode with? So do you have another one other than the good one you just gave us?
Yeah. The one to look at is, if you look at the UK on a world map or on a globe, you'll see it's a tiny triangle somewhere in the middle of a sea. Look at the rest of the world, realize that just getting into one or two or three or more markets will have a significant effect on your business. It's not as complicated if you get the right help. Knowing a bloke called Steve might help you with that. And as Mark Twain once said, explore, dream, and discover.
Excellent. That sounds a good one. So I will thank you for being a guest this week, even if we weren't truly beside us fire, but hey, there's room for improvement. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for asking me, Mark.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on. I will say, as always, if you'd like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, and in particular, if you'd like to appear in a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth, at the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. Cheers. Have fun.